Now we are on with our beloved friends. We appreciate your patience. Those of you who are watching live, we had a little, because Nick is off in a whole other world. You're off in a whole other time zone. You're off probably doing the bidding of the Russian. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder. All right.
Yeah.
Is that our lovely Leilani here? Maybe she's here. She is.
It looks like she's here, and yeah.
That's yes, there she is. Hello, beautiful woman.
Hello, Lonnie.
But today and this is something that Luani and many other folks might be interested in, because if your kid comes to you, you have kids, right? You probably you have a son, and I've seen your son. I mean, at least on video. Your son comes to you and says, "Dad, I want to be a physicist just like you." Does this fill you with horror, or do you start thinking, a physicist? Well, Elon Musk was a physicist and he's a billionaire. Time for me to start shopping for retirement real estate in Florida. What? I'm just saying, tell us about the business of being a physicist, the phys biz.
So I got into physics because of the money, the drugs, and the women. And boy, was I disappointed.
Well, but look, it is possible to be a rich physicist. I mean, there are, Elon Musk being the best example I would like to point out of an African physicist.
Yeah, right.
But in real, so give us a sense of what the real world of physics is like.
So, it's not uncomfortable. I mean, Elon Musk is rich, not because of being a physicist, but he's an entrepreneur. He's doing, I don't know how to describe what he's doing, but it certainly is, his background is related to it, but it's not the workaday physicist.
If I must know that, I mean, certainly material science is among that was his specialty, and that's a very, very, very intensely physical phenomenon.
Right. But his job is not material science, right? His job is not going into the lab every day. His job is like leveraging what he knows to create new products. I don't even know what that. There's no career path to Elon Musk.
Wow.
There's no career path to Bill Gates. There's no career path to Mark Zuckerberg. Go to Harvard and find roommates who are doing something interesting and see however you want to take that story, see how you can leverage that to, turn it into something, that everybody uses. And
go to Harvard and drop out.
Go to Harvard and drop out. Yeah, that's the career advice that you would get from looking at those extreme events, right?
Our beloved Luani is curious about that's a really interesting question.
That's interesting. I don't know the numbers exactly. So and when you say education, most of the time, so I'm thinking about, I just ran a career panel for one of the schools that we're running here for PhD students in solar physics. And part of the goal of the career panel was that you can have a PhD and not be a professor and not be doing research in the standard academic vein. And part of the problem for these students is that they are in schools with faculty, often full professors, and the definition of full professor is somebody who is world-renowned in their field. What?
That's that can't be the definition of a full professor.
Yeah.
That is?
Yeah. Well, so and by their field, we're talking about subspecialties. So if you organize a conference on Riemann spectroscopy, these are the people who will show up.
So I think what I hear you saying is is that someone who is recognized as having contributed substantially to their field. Is that what you mean by world-renowned?
Yeah.
So do you mean like someone who has discovered some
world-renowned in the community that they are contributing in?
Right. Okay. I mean,
which could be like 5 guys, but you know.
Okay, but someone who has discovered something that no one else has discovered, or found something that no one else has seen, or dug up something that everyone else had. Okay, all right. So that
there's something where somebody says, "I want to know more about X," and there's a question that can be asked about you or that professor that says, "I want to know more about the X," and the answer is, "Go see Professor so and so," and so.
Then you're a full professor, as opposed to a tenured professor.
Yeah, so you can be tenured at the associate level, which merely means you're like nationally renowned or something like that. I don't know. So
all right. So my guess is, at places like Boston University, a fairly small percentage of people who've spent the 8 years it takes to get your PhD in physics, 8 to 10.
Yep.
It's a pretty small percentage of people who actually get to be even tenured professors, I'm guessing.
Yes. Because a tenured full professor will have something like 30 students in their lifetime.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and and that's a sort of moderately productive career. I
guess I don't understand, because I've seen so many lectures with big lecture halls of people giving lectures to 1,100 people. Sure,
that's undergraduates.
Okay, but at the graduate level, it's all really tiny classes.
Typically, yeah.
Okay. So just for fun, so what's the salary for a tenured professor? What are we talking? I know it depends a lot on the school.
It can be pretty broad. For a tenured professor, it's probably $100K. And that also depends on your grant production, how much grant money you bring in, if you've got any, if you're especially in engineering, but even in physics or other sciences, if you've got any side companies that you're working on that the university encourages, right? So they want the prestige of having a side company, but so it's for a full professor, it's 6 figures.
Well, now you made a really interesting point that I think that I had not really thought at all about until the last couple of years, which is that a good chunk of the time of the professors who I know, a good chunk of the time is spent just trying to raise money. A good chunk of their time, I was just up in with a couple of neuroscientists up in Washington, and she's up there. They're up there writing grants.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
I mean,
they are managing a lab. So rather than actually like going into the lab and doing the Eureka thing.
So is that true? Is that a common thing among professors that you have to spend a lot of time? Because you mentioned your income depends on how effectively you raise money. So we're talking a bunch of the money. It's like in politics or a lot of other things. A bunch of your time is spent raising money for yourself.
I would say that yes. So, and it's raising money so at the full professor level, it's raising money not for yourself, because you typically are being.
Oh, don't tell me I lost my buddy again. Well, if we did this, it turns out, hi there. By the way, my name is Aaron Freeman. I am artist in residence for the Chicago Council on Science and Technology. I am here speaking right now with a frozen man. My guess is that he will unfreeze himself. He just logged off. He will unfreeze himself and get himself back on. But until then, let me just say that I am a sciencey optimist, and I appear. Oh, there he is. He's back already. Oh my goodness. So I'm a sciencey optimist. The Excitable Ape is my channel. And there he is. Our buddy Nicholas Gross is back. So you were saying, so the full professor typically is being taken well care of. He or she are not raising money for themselves because they're fine. They're raising money for the work they want to do and to support their graduate students.
Yes, right, and possibly postdoctoral researchers, and and buy equipment and travel. So it's important to go places and interact with people, and you might have to raise some money if you want to go on a sabbatical. And typically a sabbatical is a form of professional development where you go to some other place, work with somebody for a while on a new technique or a new approach, and then be able to apply it into a problem that you're interested in.
So let me, I got my question, but Luana has a good question here. How many and which are the most interesting? So there are lots of ways to physics the world.
Right.
There are lots of ways.
There are lots of ways to physics the world. Yes.
Give us a little rundown of some of the various ways to physics.
So there's your favorite is particle physics, which is both the experimental and the theoretical. So you both build big pieces of equipment to building size walls of blackboards with equations.
Can I tell you this real quick? My goodness, he's a very good friend of mine. How can I forget him for a second? He's the dean of physical sciences at the University of Chicago, right?
Yes.
His joke is, so he's in charge. He spends a lot of time managing departments, and he says he gets these complaints from some of the physicists, some of his professors saying, "There's not enough trash cans. There's not enough trash cans in this place." And then he always says, "Look, if you guys were better mathematicians, you wouldn't need so many trash cans." but how can I forget his name? Anyway, it's because whenever you're performing, about 15% of your brain vanishes from just self-consciousness.
Okay.
But anyway, all right. So there's particle physics. That's one area of physics.
That's sort of one extreme. The other extreme is something like biophysics. So you are applying the techniques of physics to biological systems or materials. So looking at cell membranes, or looking at the
electrical systems of the body, the electrical systems of the brain.
The electrical systems of the body. How does a neuron really? Can you model a neuron with and resistors? So another area of physics is soft condensed matter. And what I mean by that is you've got you could be looking at materials, but you're looking at their granular properties. So what is a sand pile, for example? You can pile it up so steep, but then after you get too steep, nope, I'm going the wrong way. After you get too steep, it collapses.
Okay.
Right. And so trying to figure out what that angle of repose is, and before it collapses, and does that depend on the shape of the particles? Let
me ask another question here. If your son wants to be a physicist, what do you tell him to look at? What area of physics do you tell him to look at if he wants to have the best chance of making a nice, happy, luxurious, upper middle class income?
I think what you have to look at, we were just talking about this in this career panel discussion, which I also want to get into.
Okay.
But because it's not about what we've been talking about. But somebody was pointing out that you should get into an area of physics that interests you. And there could be lots of different areas of physics that interest you, and as long as you're enjoying it, don't worry. Right?
This would you say to your son, just have a good time and don't worry about whether you make a living?
Well, so because if you're working in physics, you're not doing it to turn a buck.
So there are no particularly profitable areas of physics? We've lost him again, but we know that our good buddy Nick Gross will be back in just a moment. Now, Luana, you mentioned what are the most resonating physics fields? What does that mean, resonating? I'd love to know what resonating means. But so we're on with Professor Nick Gross, who is he's back, who is a lecturer in physics at Boston University. He's also, let us just say, a lot of people have commented on what a charming guy you are. He's also an improviser. I know Nick as an improviser, as a member of the improv science community, a very talented science communicator. So you, nobody.
So if your physics is hard, so these academic subjects, at the cutting edge, trying to discover new knowledge is hard, and it's frustrating, and it's challenging, and you fail more than you succeed. And so if you're not enjoying it, if when the payoff comes, you aren't like, yes, I understand this really cool thing now, you should go become a lawyer, right? Because you're gonna do something that's equally hard and equally challenging, but you get a paycheck at the end of the day. And you
just said, though, that what we've been talking about has nothing to do, is not about what you have been actually talking about to real people really considering careers in physics.
Right. So we had a group of students, they're all graduate students, some postdocs, who have all been in academia. They've been in graduate school and working with professors, so working with academics. And the career panel that I put together was people with PhDs doing alternative things. So doing not standard academic things. So for example, one woman she's got a PhD in physics, but she's working on education projects for the National Solar Observatory. So she's working with researchers, and she's working with them to translate their understanding of the sun to the public in general. And she sort of speaks both languages, right? It's right. Over here she's speaking with the researchers, and then over here she's speaking with the public. Right. And being able to go back and forth on that. Another woman was is a science entrepreneur. So she runs a company. It's I can't remember what the name of it is. It's something photonics, but it's like photonics. It's like have the old the movie, the Western, Have Gun Will Travel.
Yeah,
right. This is Have Spectroscoper Will Travel. Right.
Right. Well,
right. I'll come and do your spectroscopy for you, and for cash
for a lot less than it would cost in theory for you to set up your own experiment and do your own lab.
Get it right and make sure and be confident that your results were right and become an expert in that thing. Right. And then another woman, there was a comment that all three of these on my panel. So it's which is again, we were talking about race in physics earlier, and gender in physics. It's a better diversity in race, but it's still pretty bad.
It's not great. So it's better in race, and it's really terrible. But it's even worse worse for gender, worse for women.
Flip it around. So it's
more women, but fewer Negroes.
Yeah. So, but it's still bad for gender. So we're still working on that. The third person was doing.
No need to answer the question, but let's just say. But I will say that I have met in my career some very attractive physicists, of whom, of course, you're the cutest. But anyway, so what you just said sounds something that I think is really interesting, which is that in the future, going forward, entrepreneurship seems to me a thing that will be increasingly useful for everybody, including physicists.
Yes, I think so. I don't know.
Yes, I think so. I don't know. Now that's a scientist, okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I respect. I don't know. That's what I'm talking. That's why we love you. But certainly we talked about Elon Musk. It wasn't his physics. It's his ability to take what he knows about material science and marry it to what he knew from Wharton, blah, blah, blah.
But I think entrepreneurs are also very particular people.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be cut out to be an entrepreneur, because it seems like they're doing something different every day. Or like they're always like looking for the next thing to like, they kind of antsy, right? They kind of, so I think there's roles. I think there's room for entrepreneurs, and they fill a certain role. And I'm studying also. Then somebody's got to help. Somebody's got to be there to work for the entrepreneur, right? We all can't be king, right? There's got to be
although most of the physics present company excluded, most of the physicists I know do think they are the king of brains, and they do think that we mortals are just are ciphers to their great accomplishment. But the entrepreneurship is not something that you think is necessarily. There have to be people. Some are entrepreneurial, and that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different set of skills than being a physicist.
Sure, but I also think that physicists, in particular, scientists in general, need to think about developing these other skills, or at least exploring these other skills. Am I cut out to be an entrepreneur? Am I cut out to communicate science?
But now my impression is also of late. First of all, I think that some of the richest scientists are really fabulous communicators.
Yes.
And they write best-selling books. But even to effectively communicate generally, don't you have to be a really good writer? Don't you have to have really good writing skills? Certainly to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. But it depends on the type of writing skills. I think there's different types of writing skills. Well, there's certainly academic writing and technical writing that you want to get. But then there's like, am I pulling the audience in? And then there's writing for the general public. There's the Neil deGrasse Tyson type storytelling that you might do.
But when we talk about writing grants.
Yeah. So, this is even another type of writing that's really important, where you're both writing technically, but you're also trying to make a compelling story about a compelling case
for why about $6 million.
Why, yeah, right. And how you're going to spend it, and and you have to be, in 20 pages, you have to have a great science idea, a good way of tackling it, show that you're capable of doing this, and that you're going to do it on a budget.
Now, so Luana mentions that, well,
extroverts. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would assume that if you're going to be a teacher, you have to be an extrovert. If you're going to be a really popular professor and get tenure.
Not necessarily. I mean, so tenure has nothing to do with being. You have to not embarrass yourself in teaching. That's to get tenure. What you have to do is you have to, depending on the institution, show that you are, basically going to be able to add prestige to the institution. So I would say bring prestige.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's that somebody can again, the university can point to you and say, so and so is a world renowned specialist in this, this, and this. He's won these awards. He's got this many papers. He's a brilliant scientist, and you should send your kid here. And oh, by the way, we've got a good gym facility, and the football team is good too.
So this is where our teachers are so well renowned that you want to send $60,000 a year to this institution and support this work.
What's the sort of so the U.S. News and World Report sort of ranking rate depends on whether, well, have you heard of this? They ask other academics, have you heard of this institution? Well, yeah, I know so and so over there. Or, oh yeah, they've got this good guy who's doing this particular specialization over there. So it's.
Well, now you mentioned something that Luani points out. So when a lot of us think of physics, we think of Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysics, and we think of Richard Feynman, all physics.
Yeah. Okay.
But are there boutique areas of physics that most of us don't hear about?
Sure, you don't hear a lot about material science like surface science physics. How do I understand using like electron beams to probe the surface and understand what the quantum structure is? You don't hear about X-ray crystallography a lot.
Well, we here on the North Shore of Chicago know about Rosalind Franklin.
Okay.
I'm just saying, her X-ray crystallography is what reveals
the
helical nature of the DNA molecule, which Crick and Watson got credit for because they have penises.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, but your point is well taken.
Yeah, right. You don't hear a lot about sort of quantum condensed matter. So the condensed matter physics world is pretty underrepresented. I would say the biophysics world, except when there's like a really cool discovery, can be underrepresented.
Forgive me. Okay, I'm going to display my real ignorance because I just microscopically understand the term
condensed matter.
Condensed matter physics. Tell me a little about condensed matter physics as we begin to wrap up here.
So my PhD is in condensed matter physics.
How lovely.
And it's talking about not the fundamental interactions of individual particles with each other, but what happens if I get a collection of these particles together? So what happens to silicon when a silicon, not a single atom of silicon, but a silicon wafer, and if I grow it as a single crystal and then I dope it with boron, right? And can I understand how the properties change so that I can make semiconductors?
Oh, that's important. That's a big one.
Right. So, mm-hmm.
So all right. So to wrap this up here, I think what I hear you saying is that as a field, and if your son or daughter comes to you and says, "I want to be a physicist," the most useful thing to do is to find some way to discern if they really, really, really want to be a physicist.
Right.
And that unless you really, like as I mentioned,
it was clear to me early on that my son thought like an engineer.
Oh, please explain to me the difference between a physicist that thinks and an engineer.
So a physicist wants to understand why things work. An engineer wants to apply why things work to solving problems.
Well, I like that. Okay, all right. Huh. And so they both involve intense curiosity.
Yes.
About the material world, but just different areas. Someone like people. Huh. You there? All right. So, so look, beloved sibling, I want to thank you immensely much for watching. Thank you, Luana. Thank you for watching now. Thank you for watching later on the replay. Maybe our buddy will get him before I wrap up here. But I want you to know my name is Aaron Freeman. I am a Sciencey Optimist. I post new Sciencey optimistic videos every Monday through Friday right here on Facebook and on YouTube. Oh, there he is. And we can get him back here to say goodbye. There he is, our brother. And we are here. We're on Tuesdays. We try really hard to chat with my dear, dear, beloved improv pal, Professor Nick Gross.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. It was always a pleasure. We should talk about engineering and physics another time. And
I would totally love to talk about engineering and physics. So thank you all very much. And we hope that this, I think I joined my buddy Nick in wishing you all, everybody watching, the absolute best day of your entire life.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.